Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. If you don't know who I am, that means you're new. I'm Mark. What's good with y'all? Go check out my other videos. Check them out. But first, stay on this one. So, not too long ago, I did a video talking about 3 revolver calibers that are more fun than functional for self-defense. And one of those calibers, right, if you guys watched that video, at least you'll remember, was the 500 Magnum cartridge. Some of you guys might be wondering, well, why is 500 Magnum not so great for self-defense? And I kind of go into detail about it in that video. However, I thought about it and I was like, you know what? 500 is a pretty big caliber. It's a pretty, it's a iconic caliber, if you would, being the largest handgun caliber on the planet, if I'm not mistaken. So I figured it deserves its own video about whether or not it itself is a good round for self-defense. So we're going to talk about a couple of different things about 500 Magnum, and then of course run them through all 4 self-defense situations and see what the score is. So for starters, for those of you guys who don't have an idea of what the 500 Magnum, as far as size goes at least, let me adjust that, sorry. As far as size goes, some people don't know what the 500 Magnum is. So this is a 44 Magnum casing right here. This is a 500 Magnum casing. Just to show you how big it is, the 44 Magnum casing fits inside the 500 Magnum casing. That is how big of a difference we're talking about when we're talking about size. Some people will argue 44 is already a pretty big handgun caliber. 500, that's just overkill. No one's going to be able to shoot that. And yeah, I hear where you're coming from, especially in a self-defense situation. It is very much so overkill. You don't get a great capacity out of it. However, the power that you get from the 500 Magnum round is insane. But we're going to move on. We're going to start with home defense. Is 500 Magnum good for home defense or not? Well, we have to talk about a couple of different things. We have to talk about how much the ammo costs. I mean, it is not cheap. It is not cheap, guys. You are looking at least, I don't know, $1.50, $2 around, somewhere around there. By all means, if you can find it cheaper, let me know. But it is not a cheap round to get. So that takes away a lot of your abilities to practice with it. It is a very much so high recoil round. It has a lot of recoil to it. Excuse me. So you're already kind of just starting off with starting on a bad foot, if you would. Excuse me, sorry guys, but it's high recoil, high cost, and you get a low capacity. There are not really any 500 Magnum guns that have a capacity higher than 6 rounds. Now, to the benefit of the 500 Magnum round, I can pretty much guarantee you if you hit somebody with a 500 Magnum, you're probably going to stop them. Excuse me. That seems pretty fair and obvious to me. If you hit somebody with a 500 Magnum, they're going to be in a lot of pain, to say the least. Now, if you do hit somebody with 500 Magnum, are you worried about overpenetration? 100%. It's pretty much a guarantee that if somebody's breaking into your home or something and you shoot them with a 500 Magnum, it will overpenetrate. It will go through and it will hit your wall, possibly going through that wall as well. So be aware of that, guys. But overall, what would I give the caliber for a home defense situation? You got to remember, looking at all the variables that I've just looked at, it's not going to have the highest score here. We're probably looking at about a 4. And some people might be wondering why so low if it can do the job. Yes, just because it can do the job doesn't mean you should use it to do the job. That would be what some would call overkill. That will go through, that will hit your property, possibly hit somebody else or someone else's property, which you will be held liable for. Is it really worth it? No, not really. Now, I do want to touch on something. I did say a couple minutes ago that the 500 Magnum is a very high recoil round. Some of you guys might be thinking in your head, maybe I'm over-exaggerating a bit. Check it out for yourself.
should be, I think, one more there.
You shot 3. He shot 3 and then.
Oh, did you? I shot 3?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Oh, man.
All right. Jesus Christ. Damn.
That surprised your ass, didn't it?
Holy shit.
One more.
All right, one more. God.
So as you guys can see, it is a very, very high recoil round. That's not something I'm just making up or coming up with, just pulling it out of my butt. That's not something that I'm like, come on, let's be realistic here. This is the largest handgun caliber on the planet. Moving on though from home defense, as I said before, concealed carry. Concealed carry, it's not going to get much better of a score. Arguably, it will probably get a lower score. Why is that? Some of you might be wondering. Well, we're dealing with all the same issues as before. We're dealing with a low capacity. We're dealing with a really high recoil round, a round that has a much higher chance of over-penetrating than a majority of other rounds that you could run into. And let's be 100% honest here for a minute. In a self-defense situation, most people aren't hitting their first shot. And if they are, good on you. But there's a lot of situations where people are not because they have so much adrenaline flowing through them. If you miss with a 500 Magnum, guys, I hate to break it to you, you are hitting somebody else's property. You probably are hitting somebody else. It is one of the two. And if you're not, you have been blessed by God. Okay, you've been blessed by the Lord to not have a liability of that level, of that standard. But even though you're worried about hitting somebody else's property, possibly hitting your own property, would it still do the job for an everyday carry? I guess it would do the job. It's probably going to be very heavy because, let's be 100% honest here, they're not exactly running around with super duper light 500 Magnums. Just a super duper light 500 Magnum would be like just ridiculous in my opinion. That would just be a wrist breaker. My entire point though is simply, can it be done? Can you conceal carry and use a 500 Magnum for self-defense? Yeah, sure. In the same way that, I don't know, I could use an automatic to open a can. I mean, I shoot it enough times, it'll open. I shoot it once, probably it'll open, depending on the round. But my whole point is simply that just because you can do it, does that mean you should? No. No. In a realistic sense here, guys, concealed carry 500 Magnum is just out of the question. It really is. I mean, can it be done? Yes. Can it be effective? Sure. Are you running a much higher risk of liability and you being charged with something, whether it's property damage, whether it's damage to another person that wasn't a threat to you? 100%. That's something that we can all agree on here. 500 Magnum, you have a much higher chance of over-penetrating and being held liable. 100% we can all agree there. So what would be the score for concealed carry? Some people might be wondering. Again, low capacity, high recoil round, high chance of over-penetration, expensive to shoot, so it's not like you're practicing a lot either to be accurate. Truth be told, you're looking at like a 3 out of 10. I mean, and you guys have to remember, I'm sure some of you guys are like, oh, well, I shoot my 500 Magnum all the time. Okay, good for you. A majority of people on the planet do not shoot 500 Magnum all the time. It is the largest handgun caliber on the planet. That is why. Now, moving on from concealed carry, these next two situations, I think 500 is going to get a bit more of a higher score for. And hear me out as to why. So we're going to move on to an SHTF situation. There's a couple of pros, couple of cons here. Let's talk about it. So we're going to start with the pros. The pros, you no longer have to worry about over-penetration in a more realistic sense. In an SHTF situation, you're in a state of mass lawlessness. In a state of mass lawlessness, I almost said last lawlessness. In a state of mass lawlessness, do you have to worry about damaging somebody else's property? No, not really. I mean, in a situation like that, it's not a bad idea to have such a large caliber that can definitely hit something and definitely do some damage. But also, you're dealing with a couple of big cons. Like, for example, the fact that you might not be able to find any of the ammo. 500 Magnum is not exactly a widely available round. So I hate to break this to everybody, but if you're planning on an SHTF situation, you're planning on having to use your 500 for it, being like, you know what, I'm going to keep that with me. That's my go-to, apocalypse gun, whatever. You're stupid. You're dumb. You're not going to be able to use the gun effectively because more likely than not, you don't practice with it. You're probably not going to find enough ammo to even make it worth it being an apocalyptic gun. It just doesn't make sense to me. But it is going to have a higher score because it takes away one of the cons of having to worry about overpenetration, because in an SHTF situation, again, you're not worried about the law. So in an SHTF situation, I would give it a fair 5. I think 5 is more than fair. And hear me out as to why that is. It can do the job. If you have the ammo, it's a hard-hitting round for sure. The problems, though, are simply with you having the ammo and you possibly needing excess parts. It's just probably not going to happen in an SHTF situation. Now, moving on from an SHTF situation, something that the 500 Magnum was actually made for, animal defense. Let's get into it. This is probably going to be the only one that 500 Magnum has a great score on. The 500 Magnum round, guys, in case you're wondering, is often used in safaris. Why is that? Because if you see something like a rhino coming at you, you see something huge coming at you, you can put a 500 Magnum into it, and that might not stop it, but it'll definitely make it be like, oh, what the hell am I doing? And completely abandon its idea of abandon its idea of attacking you. I can English. That's how strong the 500 Magnum is. The 500 Magnum is one of those rare calibers that I can make a fair argument for will stop a lot of animals, small, medium, and large. 500 Magnum, while being very high recoil, while being hard to find, while not having a great capacity in any of the guns chambered in the round, it will do a great job at protecting you from an animal, whether it be small, medium, or large. And let's be 100% honest here, if you're using a 500 Magnum on a small animal, that might be considered overkill. I'm using the word loosely, it definitely is. My whole point, though, is that 500 Magnum, you pretty much are protected. When you're trying to worry about protecting yourself from animals, there aren't too many animals that are running around taking 500 Magnums and just eating them. You know what I mean? Just, that's nothing. What's up? You got more? That's not happening. That is just not happening, guys. So, animal defense, 500 Magnum is actually going to get like a 9 out of 10 on this one. Would I say it's the perfect round for it? Maybe I need a little more experience with it to come to that conclusion. However, I can say based off what it does, the guns that I've shot it out of, the recoil of it, the capabilities of it, things like that, I truly feel here that in animal defense, 500 Magnum shines. Now, we have a 9, we have a 5, a 4, and a 3. Okay, let's figure out the average here. What does the 500 Magnum get here? We're looking at about a 21 out of 40, so we're looking a little over at 50%, a tiny bit over. Nothing too crazy. Once again, guys, you have to understand, there's a reason why I said this cartridge is not that great for self-defense. There's a reason why I mentioned that in the previous videos. Now you guys understand as to why. It can be super helpful for defending yourself, especially against large animals. However, in a majority of situations that your average person will run through, 500 Magnum is definitely not going to be in need. I'm aware there are some people who live out in different areas where they're like, hey, I deal with some large animals. I need my 500. That's more than fine. I'm just simply saying that in your common everyday situation that your everyday Joe Schmo would go through, is 500 Magnum going to be helpful for self-defense? No. As a matter of fact, it will probably be more harmful than helpful. But with that being said, I think that about wraps it up for this video. Y'all make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that bell. When you hit that bell, hit all. And whether or not you agree with me about my opinions on the 500 Magnum cartridge, go ahead and comment down below why or why not you agree with me. Go ahead and comment down below whether or not you shot it. Just go ahead and comment down below your opinions on this video. Other than that, make sure to check out all my other videos. Y'all make sure to stay legal, stay safe, stay dangerous. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.